afternoon and welcome to the Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting agenda. And I would like to pass it over to Ms. Moriarty.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. This afternoon, Elementary Curriculum Instruction presents item 1.01, field trip requests. There are 3 requests. One is for Bombville second grade to attend Turtleback Zoo in West Orange, New Jersey. It's a trip that they go on annually. Fostertown School grade 3 to attend Maritime Aquarium in Norwalk, Connecticut. And the third one is one that we discussed at our last curriculum committee meeting earlier in the month for Fostertown grade 5 to attend Medieval Times in New Jersey. The conversation was, was it really supporting the curriculum, and was this a trip that we wanted to support? However, referencing the field trip policy, it does state culminating end of the year activities for grades are allowable in the field trip, and this is a culminating activity for this grade at Fostertown. So these are my resolutions for today.
Any comments or questions? Yes,
Be advised that I'm still voting no.
Understood.
Not here, but on the floor.
Understood.
any other, yes, Mr. Dealer.
I'm going to vote no on that one too. I saw the explanation that it has something to do with learning about medieval times and things like that. I'm not sold on that for a couple of reasons. One, it's June 14th, 1 week before school gets out. I don't think there's a whole lot of learning going on there.
But that's why it's falling under the like end of the year culminating trip. It's not a quote unquote educational trip. She showed me the policy and I can't think of the number right now, but there is a policy that states they can have a culminating trip.
Okay, with that said, the trip above it is half as much money at a time we're pressed for money. So that's the best we could do, is $75 a person for 100 people.
Understood. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Moriarty, could you quote what you said in regards to the end of the year activity?
So I actually have it on my desk. I meant to bring it in. It's
Can I be excused to run to her office to go?
You'd have to dig through some files.
Oh, because she circled it because she specifically wanted to show it
I
to
think
you,
that's
Ms.
important.
Maneo. Yeah, but there is a policy that says it.
It's okay. I'm still adamant because I have some strong feelings about this particular trip.
And that's understood.
And I can certainly go back to the teachers and recommend that they consider another trip. I know that there are concerns about it. But what the policy references that field trips throughout the year should support curriculum. But however, a culminating activity for the end of the year for a specific grade level is an allowable field trip.
Okay.
It is a summarization of what the policy
Okay,
states.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
So we'll leave it there. I'll talk to Ms. Mojica, the principal, to talk to her teachers and ask if they'd like to reconsider. If not, we'll put it forward to the board and see if there's board approval for the trip.
Okay.
I pass to Dr. Farrell.
We have some field trips today. The first is Miss Giacomo Carbone, South Middle School, attending the ISTE convention. This is the premier convention for technology. And we're very fortunate because this spring they're holding it in Philadelphia instead of in San Diego or in New Orleans. So she will be attending. The next is for Kevin Rothman, and the third for Jerry Ortiz to attend the New York Gear Up Conference. This is preparatory to completing paperwork and becoming more acclimated to the grant that we received that tracks our 7th graders from this year, grade 7, through their 12th grade year. It provides funding on a per capita basis for each student in that cohort for very identified special activities, tracking them through 7th through 12th grade and then post-graduation as they begin career or college. The next is for Frank Mayo, a CTE, College and Technical Education Career Teacher at NFA North, to attend the Work Experience Coordinators Conference in Fayetteville, New York. This is to further his skills in his particular area. And the last is for Elva Grossman, a math teacher at NFA, to attend the College Board APA Advisory Council meeting in Kansas City. There was no cost to the district. She was asked to participate as a member of that panel, which is a significant achievement. So I am honored to bring that request to you. Do you have any questions about any of these?
You, Ms.
No, they
Neal?
all seem very valuable.
Okay,
Really.
Thank you. The next one I have is one of those culminating activities. This is for grade 12 students at NFA West, for 23 students and 3 teachers attending a field trip at Hershey Park. There is some small curriculum attachment to this, but I will be quite honest with you, this is a culminating field trip and they are graduating seniors.
so this is like a senior trip.
Yes, for this particular cohort.
Any comments or questions? Yes, Madam Manale. I'm saying Madam Manale. Oh my God, Madam President. Oh,
Okay, I'll answer to anything today.
Today.
How much no cost?
Because they have done fundraising and received donations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For that, that really makes a big difference.
Thank you. At this time with the, I have one other item first. This is a resolution to authorize Dr. Campbell to enter into an agreement with Corporate Computer Solutions to upgrade our ThinkPad laptops. This is for our P-Tech program. The current hardware and software capabilities are no longer in sync with our P-Tech requirements. So this is an upgrade of existing technology equipment for the program.
any questions or comments? Yes, Madam.
Where's the money coming from?
That is from the P-Tech budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
From the P-Tech budget and general funds or P-Tech grant?
P-Tech grant.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, I'd ask your indulgence to entertain an additional field trip. This is for our barbering students in our CTE program to attend a conference, which is actually a competition in Connecticut. This is a late arrival, and I apologize for not getting it to you sooner. This is in Mohegan Sun Boulevard in Connecticut, in Washingtonville, I believe it is. Correct, Mr. Etrin?
In Washington, Connecticut.
In Washingtonville, Connecticut. We have 40 students and 2 faculty members and 3 parents who will be fully vetted through our Rapid program before they accompany the students on this field trip. This is fully covered in general budget.
Any questions or comments? Yes,
I have a
Mr.
brief
Howard.
comment. So I was just up at school over the weekend and I walked in to where they were doing the work over there, the barbers, and they got an incredible program over there for the issue. I think it's a great opportunity for the kids, and I've been hearing a lot of the younger kids that are really interested. Once they get to the high school, they want to participate in that program. So I love what you're doing over there with that program.
I did receive a phone call and I shared it with Mr. Etri from a parent in Valley Central who was interested in knowing if her child could attend our CTE barbering program. I advised her to speak to her school district to see if they were interested in doing a cross contract and paying us tuition for that. And if so, she should call me back. So perhaps we will have some income coming in, which would be lovely.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see what happens. And I'd ask your indulgence to walk on one more item, and I'd like Mr. Etri to present this item. This is a resolution to improve the resources, as we have discussed several times, for our middle school students in CTE exploration. The reason that I'm asking you to entertain these at this meeting, even though they were not on the published agenda, is because we are not meeting in April. And these need board approval moving forward so that we can engage our staff in further curriculum writing so that they're ready for presentation and implementation in September.
So this was a time sensitive
Yes,
item, which is why we're doing it now.
Yes. And Ms. Green, may Mr. Heatley explain his presentation?
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So typically when you go to middle school, you have to get one unit, not credit. It's always different in the middle schools. You get 1 unit technology education, and you get 3/4 of a unit of family consumer sciences. As we looked at that and we worked with all 4 of the middle school principals and we spoke to staff, we wanted to build into the curriculum courses that interest kids that really want to make them go. But I have a secret to doing this as well. A good point of it, a lot of this is exploration so that kids can really look at the programs that we do offer in our school district. In this pile, and I'll get to it, is 2 newest programs, very new, that I'm going to be excited to tell you about in just a minute. So the first course is entrepreneurship. Getting kids to really look about business. What is in business? What are businesses in our community? How do they get those businesses? What does an entrepreneurship mean? Hopefully interesting them, because in all my programs, we do study entrepreneurship because kids want to open their own auto body shop. We try to really train our kids to give them the option. Yes, it's great to go work for somebody, but let's look at the option. What does it take to open your own business?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
In that course, I'm assuming you're talking about loans to try to get, I'm just
No,
making sure they
you're
know
right.
all of the hard
That's what we're
work
saying.
that goes into it.
Right.
Okay.
So they'll go through a whole process of like they're opening whatever business they're going to decide to open. They're going to write plans that probably modified plans,
Right.
but so forth, may even make a model of the business.
Mhm.
And they're going to be through how much would that loan be? How come
Right.
you need that? Let's look up the cost of the items that you needed to put in your shop.
Exactly. Okay. I'm just
No, no.
making sure they.
It's the real fun part of my curriculum. So
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
That course, entrepreneurship was a course in charting your course a long time ago.
yes, it was.
How is it different for the younger students?
Mm.
And, are you gonna need additional staff?
Not for entrepreneurship.
Okay,
Notice that I said not for.
yeah.
But
It's different than what we do at the high school. It's a modified version. It's only a half unit course where we go through this the whole year. And it's more specific to the subject areas of the high school. It's integrated in where it's not a separate class. But they do have a school store at South High. A lot of them have post office and school stores. We're really getting these kids to look at what is business? What is marketing? So this is just a little tip
introduction, like,
for something I may have in a new building. Hint, hint.
So my second question is, can the students choose this, or is this gonna be in the rotation?
It'll be in a rotation. It's really based on the building. So I'm leaving the principals, but they in love with this. They were part of the creation of this. It's everybody's been talked to bring this forth. It wasn't like, oh, let's do this and not tell anybody. They've been part of it. It actually accommodates their schedules better, having a half unit course.
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
yes, Mr. Howard.
Yes, so I'm speaking as a layperson. So when you say in the rotation, what does that mean?
Okay, there'll be several courses that the kids get to pick from. Actually, it's going to give kids a variety of things to look at. As I tell you the other ones, you'll see that I've snuck in good ways for kids to look at our programs.
Okay, so I think this is a great idea. But my question, as it usually is, kids at that age, like some kids don't know what they're like. And I'll give you a perfect example. Like the kid that's coming to school, got his mother buying 100 penny candies and coming to school, and that's entrepreneurship. But that's what they know how to do it. How would we reach out or try to get to those kids to make them understand there's a way to really be an entrepreneur? Because I know a lot of kids like that I mentor.
Oh, I know a lot of them
That's
too.
what we call them hustle. They hustle. And they
And
know
that's
how.
what it is. It's hustling.
Exactly. But a course like this would be very beneficial to those kids. How do we reach and get to those kids and let them understand what this course is truly about?
Well, I mean, the guidance counselors, of course, talk to their kids in the middle school, but we'll be talking about it in the other courses to get them to be interested.
Okay.
And this is only the preliminary work at this age group.
Okay.
So as we move forward, hopefully we'll be able to build on it and expand, and then it may become a mandatory part of the rotation. We'll see.
The next course is called Food and Production. The best way I could describe this course, little chefs. I'm going to have them look at everything to do with in the industry of being a chef in a restaurant. Again, there's my hint to opening a restaurant. There's my business end. Everyone has a small end hinting over to entrepreneurship and business.
Any
Okay,
questions or
I'm
comments?
sorry.
I love it with all the chef shows we got on TV now.
Isn't that fun?
My goal is to have a collaboration between the two courses so that at some point in time, the little chefs will be baking or cooking something that the entrepreneurs will then be peddling and selling.
Okay.
She's always
Okay.
giving me more work. The next one's. okay,
Yes,
sorry.
schools have the facilities to be able to do this in place.
Yep, they have enough classrooms and space to do all these courses.
Is this similar to home ec?
Yeah, but we're making home ec fun now. We're gonna make it little chefs. Like,
Okay.
a lot of times you go into home ec, we do self-esteem and
Yeah.
we did those pieces. Those will be embedded, but they're gonna be cooking all the time.
Gotcha.
And kids love to cook.
Yes, they-
Doesn't matter what, I could do it at elementary, I could do it at middle school, and I could do it at high school. They love to cook. If they get to compete, cupcakes in the class, I mean, there's so many ways. So
Love it.
the next course is called Apparel and Textile and Design. Again, this is another part of home economics curriculum. This is the sewing, creating, building, which we want to inspire kids that want to go in this field as well. Because in the high school, we have a fashion program and we have art programs that push these kind of kids to go into these programs.
Any comments or questions?
I love it. Love it.
The next one is nutrition and wellness, where kids learn, what does it mean? We have a child, but how do we feed ourselves? What's really good food? How does the food work within our system? So they're creating food, they're cooking, but we're going to teach them about taking care of themselves, confidence. Again, we're back to self-esteem, but also cooking so it's healthy.
Healthy, cooking healthy. I need to take that class.
Actually, I could use a little help there. So, yes.
Yes,
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
So I think this is a great course. Is there any way to try to incorporate this with the athletic department? And what I say is, this is something that all children that are want to get involved with sports and stuff. Nutrition and wellness is very important. And it is something that they're building on at the upper levels now. And I was curious, is there any way that we can tie that together? Or
We can absolutely, we have nutrition and alternative medicine, so we can create a better titled course. I think maybe bring one of the courses back because we are teaching this already. And I have to, why I say we bring it back for a new title, you got to get the athletes to think that's for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
It's always marketing. It's always marketing.
Yeah.
The next
any
course,
questions or comments before we go forward? Okay.
the next course is called Exploring Trades and Technical Careers. That's your auto mechanics, your welding, electronics, construction.
Hands-on stuff.
It's all hands-on
Mm.
tech. We already teach it. We're just putting it into a new course and organizing it a little differently.
Does that include like carpentry and stuff like that?
They're going to actually be doing birdhouses, I believe.
Oh, okay,
So
okay. Any questions or comments? That's another course I think I want to take. I'm just saying.
now these are the two biggest newest. The first one's called Lego Brick Cube. This is where I would need staff for each of the buildings, both courses. So it's one person per building. In Brick Cube, the kids are creating with Lego sets, but we're tricking them again. And this is important to me and also to my programs. As we look forward, underrepresented kids are all over the district, as well as females in many of my programs. In this course, we are training kids to look at physical sciences, but also engineering. The kids do not feel confident when they go, oh, an engineer, I can't do that. And so this is a way of showing them how if we apply some of the stuff that they actually are learning right in the middle school. So,
And we know that they love it because the 21st Century Summer Program
um,
has that and the kids love it, so.
I mean, you tell a kid you're going to go build Legos, and all of a sudden you're tricking them into learning something they didn't even know they were going, and they're like, oh. And just like we do in auto mechanics and stuff at the high school, kids go, oh, I have to drain a brake line. It's an algebraic equation. Oh, so it's getting
It ties
kids,
in with other things.
and Lego is universal. I find most kids love it.
Any questions or comments?
The second half of that course would be Lego Spike Prime. That is where we're getting kids into computer programming. It is number one in the field. It seems to be growing, but I need more kids. Even though I say I need more kids, we need more middle school kids to think they are smart enough and are underrepresented, and our females will join our program.
Go ahead, Mr.
That's a
Howard.
great idea. And I recently had a conversation with some of my fraternity brothers out of United States Military Academy in their engineering major, computer science major. And I think it would be a great opportunity if we can bring them to speak to some of the middle school kids and express the importance of what.
We can integrate that so that happens in the courses.
And they can address that underrepresented population because they look like them. And they can see the importance that they too can be a part of that. Sometimes, what you see, you'll be, when they can see it in people. So that's something we can talk about. I think.
So those two courses they'd be at both buildings, they're half unit courses, so they do one in the fall, one in the spring. That would require one teacher at Meadow, one at Temple, one at South, and who am I missing? Heritage. Oh my God, they beat me up.
And
But-
we do, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
We do have those availabilities, because as we discussed last night during the budget and prior to that, in the budget information that was provided, we have, 4 low positions that had not been filled that we are able to use for these vacancies for these positions.
And the middle schools were excited about these because there's no more study halls, because they don't always work. Sometimes the kids are just messing around or doing whatever, being kids.
With the computer science course, the only little concern I would have is that kids always think it's hard in the sense that you need certain math and science skills for computer programming, because I've done it and it can get convoluted, for lack of a better word, at times. So the kids need to understand that although some of those skills are required, at this point, it wouldn't be like real detail,
Right.
like when somebody is actually programming or making up a language for a computer. So we need to try to make it a little more interesting, because when they hear math and science, they tend to freak out a little bit.
Well, I'm not telling them math and science.
Okay,
No, that's why I'm calling it Lego Spike Prime.
okay,
Not probably till they're third of the way through that the kids will go, this is how we create video games. Exactly.
okay,
This is how we create, and believe it or not, that's an interest.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
And it is a great field. Look at these kids. I mean,
Yeah, they can play video games with their eyes closed, most of them.
they're amazing.
Yeah. Okay, that was my concern. Thank you.
No.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
Okay,
One comment.
yes,
Just fantastic. It's so nice to see things like this.
yes, it is. It really is, yeah.
Thank you very much, and thank you for letting
No,
us
thank
put
you.
this onto the agenda.
Thank you, John.
Next item, we were going to discuss an update about Plato and Edmentum. That is software that's used for credit recovery. Unfortunately, we were scheduled to meet in-house to discuss the details of the program, and with budget preparation, we were not able to do that. So with your indulgence, I'd like to postpone that for our next meeting.
Okay.
Conversation and report on that.
Any questions or comments about that postponement? Okay,
And the next item, the 8th grade regents. We had briefly discussed, having our 8th graders take, the regents exams this June at our secondary campus. We were able to work out transportation, but this is also the first year that, in many years, that our 8th grade is going to take our 3 through 8 assessments, SED assessments. And even though they are at a different time of the year, this has created a little bit of anxiety on the part of staff who are involved, and some parents had questions. So they are going to be participating in the 3 through 8 assessments from SED, because that is a state mandate. But we are going to leave the grade 8 regions on their home campus this June. But all of the proctors and administrators for the regents exams at those sites will train with our NFA North and Main proctors and regents. So that, and not to suggest that they were not well trained, but so that we have uniformity across the district, with the understanding that as we move forward next June, we will again examine the possibility of having our students take the exam in one setting.
okay. And just so you guys know, it's only for the math and science, because you see grade 8 regions, you may think it's all of the regions exams that high school kids take is strictly for math and science.
So it's algebra and
And earth science,
Algebra 1, earth science, living environment, and we have one last grade 8 cohort who also will be taking US history, but this is the last
Last
time
year
that
for
will be
that.
happening.
Yes, Mr. Howard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second. Understanding the importance of those exams and when kids' exam time is just a ball of anxiety. What's the need? Like, I like what we're doing this year, keeping them in their building. But for some kids, maybe going to a new building at test time, doesn't that add to the anxiety?
Well, I spoke about that at the meeting. I was saying, I think that they should be able to stay in their building, but that was just my opinion.
Yeah.
But I spoke about that at the meeting.
I feel this, I'm just curious because,
Yeah.
We want to try to remove anxious moments and anxiety from kids. And some kids will suffer anxiety and won't even let you know, but the results come out on the test.
The
But
Hill
what would
School,
I'm sorry.
the Hill School principals did bring that up. The middle school principals did not find that to be an issue. The middle school principals were more ready to move forward with having the eighth graders sit at the secondary campus than the Hill schools. But I understand that because you have a different atmosphere in a K through 8 building than you do in a 6, 7, 8. And I think that's part of it. But because of the SED testing, the 3 through 8 for the first time in many years happening again, and also because of those expressed concerns, we said, let's revisit it and work out the details more finitely rather than rush.
Yes, Madam
How
President.
are they gonna do scoring?
That is something that we're going to discuss at the training because the scoring should be done in the same manner.
Well, you can't score your own kids. so-
Exactly. And we need to identify scores from other buildings that will cross score. Because not everyone, not to minimize the skills of our 8th grade staff, but not everyone is prepared to do necessarily an algebra exam. So we will work all those details out with them.
And
We do need to do things in a very uniform manner.
in addition, during Regents Week at the high school, the students who are not taking Regents exams are not in the building. So the building is completely free except for students taking exams. At the middle school, all students are in school. So it was brought up that it could be a little complicated because they don't need to hear bells ringing when it's time to change a class and stuff like that. They don't have that at the middle school. So, I mean, at the high school. So that's why
That's
they
one
were
of the
thinking
reasons we're
about
thinking about
going,
MFA.
taking the kids to the high school, because when I brought up my concern, they was like, well, not none of the kids in the building at the high school. I was like, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. So it's a nice, quiet environment for them to take that test. Because in the middle school, like I said, the other 6th and 7th graders are still there going about their business. They're not, they're still in the building. So that could be a difference.
We
I would
will
just-
work on it.
I was just relating it back to me being a kid from Newburgh. I know you left NFA, North High, NFA that first day was incredible. Just being at that big building and
Mhm.
it's a different feeling. It's a different feeling and it's just different.
Right.
When you go to the big house, it's just, some kids, on a test day that's so important. And that's the only reason I asked.
If we go forward with this next year, one of the things we need to do is make sure that our 8th graders have the opportunity at least once, probably twice, to visit the campus,
That's a good
become familiar with the layout. This is where you're going to take your exam. This is where you're going to, do this and that, and work those things through.
I like that.
Which this year we just ran out of time to do it appropriately.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
And lastly, but certainly not least, we have a presentation today on our ELA, English Language Arts activities, by our Director of English Language Arts, Ms. Nielsen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you? Hi. We're gonna go to the second slide. Yeah, you're controlling your mic.
I need to share.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. They're both grabbing the mics. So I'm excited to share the work that we're doing in English Language Arts. It's a progression of what we began doing pre-COVID. So I wanted to share the updated New York State ELA timeline. New York State
has presented new standards that we're all aware of, the next gen English language art standards. Because of COVID, they provided an additional year for us to continue to build our capacity before the new state assessments are implemented. This year is the first time our students in grades 3 through 8 will encounter the assessment that's aligned to the next gen ELA standards. And our high school students will experience this in 2026. So they have a little bit more time. What we've done to build capacity on this, we've unpacked the advanced literacy briefs, and those are just fancy term for research that was presented by State Ed that is designed to help teachers understand implementation of the next gen standards, as well as strategies. It gives kind of the theory behind it. So we unpacked that, we unpacked the standards. We talked about, cross-referenced it with Common Core to understand what has changed and how that could potentially change our practice. We've done a lot of discussions and prep work prior to doing our revisions on our curriculum map. So all of our curriculum maps are aligned with the next gen ELA standards. This drives our work. You can go to the next slide, please. So these are some of the findings from the last administration for 3 through 8, as well as the recent administration of the New York State Regents exam. Our majority of our scholars at the high school level take it in January. So some of the things that we've unpacked, we've identified strengths based on our students' performance. We've noted that our students' formatting of the constructed response, which are the essays or the shorter paragraphs in 3 through 8, they do that really well. That is a similarity we're seeing with the Regents. In 3 through 8, we've identified, or we've seen a growth in vocabulary that seems to be one of our stronger strands, to be honest with you. And I know over the years, we focused a lot on vocabulary development and vocabulary skills. We're seeing a stronger performance in the literature when they're reading and analyzing literature. And we're also seeing strength in craft and structure. And what that means is, how does the author present their idea? How are they building this theme, the central message, the character development? And then our areas of need, you'll see some consistencies across the board. So we need to focus a little bit more on developing our scholars' ability to analyze the text and to better connect the evidence that they're pulling. They're able to pull evidence, but better connect it to the theme, to the claim, to the central idea. And then at the high school level, they're able to format that, what the teachers are seeing, and through our common assessments, which I'll talk about after this, is that we need to have a more complex central idea or more complex claim. There are two things that ELA works on. So they're a little simplified, and it's harder for kids to connect the evidence to it. So they're working on developing that. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. These are the 4 action steps that we're taking this year in order to continue to build our capacity and to address the needs of our scholars in literacy. So we're looking at common assessments, we're looking at a data cycle around that, we're looking at professional learning, and we're looking at fostering a literacy culture. So I'm going to explain some of the highlights for each of those components in the next slides. We can go to the next slide, please. So with our ELA common assessments, I have it broken down into format and frequency. There are common assessments, 1 per unit. We have 4 units in ELA, K to 12. So at the end of each unit, students will experience a source-based, meaning they're going to have a text and they're going to write a response about what they're reading, or at the K1 level, what they're listening to. And they're going to explain and analyze the text based on this prompt. And it's available in English and Spanish for our students at the K5 because of bilingual program and the dual language program. In grades 3 through 5, they're modeled after the New York State ELA format. We did this intentionally because what we're seeing is that we need to focus a little bit more on writing. Writing accounts for 50% of the test. Yes. So we need to develop the skill. We need to talk about the skill. We need to talk about instructional strategies with this skill. The writing component of the New York State assessments also evaluates reading. So we're hitting both with the writing prompts, hopefully that makes sense. With secondary, we did things a little differently. Secondary, all of the exams are available in English only. What we did for our newcomers, I worked very closely with Dr. Martinez Morales, on what this could potentially look like. We collaborated with ENL professionals in the district in order to develop an exam that kind of takes away the language barrier, but still addresses the skill. So what that could potentially look like, maybe we have a shorter passage. Maybe there's a visual text that they're analyzing instead of the written text, because that's also a skill that they have to do on the English exam. And they're still writing about the same prompt or a similar prompt. And we're still analyzing this similar skills or the same skills. The middle level is modeled after the 3 through 8 model. So they'll have a 2-point short constructed response or the 4-point extended response. And the high school is modeled after the 2 types of ELA constructed responses. One would be an argument where they have multiple texts that they're reading, formulate a claim, and then support it and explain its connection. And then the other one is a literary analysis, where they're reading maybe a short excerpt of literature and they're identifying a theme or talking about how the author develops that skill, that message. Thank you. After students take the assessment, teachers go through a data cycle. So we've been working on what that looks like, right? So we develop the assessments, students take it, and then we meet in small groups. What you see up here are the questions that are guiding questions that we use to analyze. Student writing, teachers bring in and look at actual student samples. Names are removed. They're just looking at what our kids are doing across grade levels. These conversations happen in common planning, and they're looking for trends across grade levels. We're seeing some similarities in trends. So when we come together at the secondary level with multiple grade levels in one room during common planning, we could talk about that across the department and have a conversation on what we could potentially do programmatic wise, as well as instructionally to support our students. So they also create a plan. It's okay, you can stay here. They also create an action plan from that. So it's not just analyze what you're seeing, what are we going to do about it? And then we have conversations in order to support it. These are some examples of the last analysis. So this was from Q2. Q3 is happening now this week. For middle and high school, and then elementary will happen after spring break. So you'll see some similarities we're seeing in our common assessments, which we also saw in the state results. Our kids are really good at formatting the short constructed response. I'm sure you guys have heard the race strategy used, right? So they know how to use this strategy to fully answer the question, all the different components of the question. What we need to start working on is how to go a little bit deeper. How do we share our original thought? That's what I call it. What do we think about the text, and then support it and explain why it supports. They're able to come up with a main idea or a central idea or a claim, and then pull out evidence. And we need to build the capacity to connect that to the purpose of their writing. So that's what they're doing. You'll see the areas of improvement are pretty consistent with what we're seeing with state. So the common assessments are helping us to better identify, better and to do it quickly, not just wait to the state assessments, and then develop plans throughout. Some of the action steps that teachers are coming up with are to use one-on-one conferences, writing conferences, not just write feedback, but sit down with students and do that. They're talking about direct, explicit instruction of certain skills. in our common plannings and in our group meetings, we talk about what that looks like. Teachers share what's working in their classrooms, and they're sharing it with colleagues, and we're building off of one another. We're sharing about some of our struggles, and we're working together and collaborating to help one another out. We're talking about our students who are struggling. We're talking about our students who are newcomers and are struggling with language and showing these skills. And we're collaborating with E&L, and we're collaborating with exceptional learners in these meetings. It's not just ELA talking in a silo. And they're also talking about increasing writing practice and exposures and looking at teacher modeling and student examples and analyzing that so that students can see and have conversations about skills and strategies that they need to incorporate. Next slide, please. I'm trying to give you the Reader's Digest version. You know, ELA, we talk a lot. So this is some of the professional learning that we're doing. The professional learning is both for teachers as well as building administrators. So you're going to see examples of this up here. So I talked a little bit about common planning, about what we're doing about instruction. Common planning is pretty much about instructional focus. So one example of how we're going about doing that, besides these discussions, we're doing book studies. So there's an example of a book study at the high school level. All NFA campuses have a copy of this book. It's about teaching critical thinking. This is a request from the teachers. They wanted to dive a little bit deeper on how to engage kids in discussions about topics that you encounter in ELA. And we all know that there are some heavy topics in ELA. So they do book studies. They look at a chapter a month and they talk about it. And then they share practices. That's the design of the common planning around this, plus what we're seeing with the common assessments. In our department meetings, we're unpacking the units and we're talking about it with the common assessments. So teachers are looking at common assessments, they're looking at the end product, and we're talking about backward design, right? So this is where we want kids to go. How do we get kids to there? Let's talk about what the standards are asking our kids to do, and then talk and share about what that looks like, as well as let's look at our common assessments and give feedback on it, because we want to have a very meaningful assessment. Is it aligned with our unit? We also have job embedded coaching. One example of this, you'll see a picture up there. We had a writer in residence that worked with our 12th grade teachers this year. I'm hoping to expand it. What he did was he presented narrative structures and narrative strategies. So he modeled for teachers. He had teachers go through the experience as a student. He went into the 12th grade classrooms. He showed what these practices look like with the kids. And he sat side by side with teachers, showing them how to coach kids through this narrative writing practice. This went along with our unit that supports students with the college essay. So that was in place. And if kids aren't interested in the college essay, there was a piece that they can work on, a narrative piece about themselves and their experience. It also helps us as teachers in the beginning of the year to get to know our kids. So he did that. Teachers loved it. They wanted him to come back more and more. I told him we'll have to hold off and see where we are. He's actually working with our West teachers now on a really fun project. And I'll let you know what that is when they're ready. They're just starting. We also have one-on-one coaching sessions with district coaches, and I'll explain that in another slide. With our leadership learning, we have our leaders that come together and we unpack the standards. We talk about district resources. We talk about theory behind all of this, and we're building our capacity as leaders on how to support our teachers with implementation of the next gen standards using our district resources. We look at data during these meetings and we come up with action plans, and we support that way. We also have learning walks. So there's a picture up there of a recent learning walk that we did. The middle level, we went to Ossining last month, I think on the 7th. And we visited them because they're using the 100 book challenge. So we wanted to learn from their implementation, what's working there, what will work with us? Let's talk to teachers, let's talk to administrators. There were 14 district, building, and classroom teachers from Newburgh that attended this, and it was a great conversation, great practices that were learned through this. So that was one example. We also have PLCs at the K-5 level where the building admin visit classrooms, and they help one another and support one another on implementation with literacy in the classrooms and how to support that. You go to the next slide, please. So we're using an instructional coaching model. This is based on Jim Knight's research. So this just tells what an instructional coach, the purpose of an instructional coach, and the things that they do. So we follow that little graph where you identify, you learn, and you improve. So the identify part is where the teacher and the coach comes together, identifies a goal that they want to work on. The coach will do the research, will model, and then we'll coach them through. That's the learning piece of it. And then there's a reflection piece where they talk about how it went, right? Not only for the teacher with the goal, but also the coach, in order to build capacity in both and to present it and share it with other classroom teachers. So we're doing this in all of the secondary classrooms. We're doing this in all of the, Maine, North, Heritage, and South right now, and hoping to expand it next year. But we're targeting those schools to kind of learn from this process and to tighten it up and to also address some of the needs that we're seeing. If you go to the next slide, please. In order to foster a literacy culture, we did a couple things in ELA world where we worked with FACE and presented parent universities. We went over the 3 through 8 exams, as well as the New York State Regents exams, and provided parents with information about the format, the purpose, and strategies in order to help at home. We also have a hyperlink. We have a website or a web page that is connected to the district website that parents can go to for resources, information about our curriculum, information about assessments. There's a hyperlink in there, but I don't know if we have time. And we're also sending home the home update, which provides parents with information about their students' reading abilities as well, or their child's reading abilities, as well as information on what they can do at home to support. You go to the next slide, please. Prior years ago, you might be aware there were students who would go to classrooms periodically in order to read to elementary kids. So we're fostering literacy culture. We started the Literacy Ambassador Program. We have high school students that have joined in order to read to kids. I know that West does something similar with their internships. We expanded it to Maine and North. So this started with athletes who went to classrooms in order to read to kids, kind of build this culture of reading and share the joy of literacy, and also work with kids. So we have 5 kids currently. I'm hoping to expand. And they're working in K-2 classrooms in GAMS as well as Fostertown right now. I know I'm trying. So I'm really trying. So we chose GAMS because it's easy to get there from Maine and North. If you go to the next slide, please. And I also get to work with library and media studies. This will be quick. If you go to the next slide. We're working on 3 things. It's pretty much understanding the new standards that they have. So it's the Empire State Informational Fluency Standards. The graphic there just shows the research behind it and the process behind the work that they do. And they're also working on expanding their library to include more culturally and linguistic texts. Go to the next slide, please. These are the four major components of the library media studies curriculum. If you go to the next slide, please. And this is what it looks like in action. So multiple literacies, students are consumers and producers. So what you'll see are students reading multiple types of literature, not just books, not just having book studies, but also producing. So there are two examples of student text from the elementary level, and these are usually centered around monthly celebrations where they're researching and learning about different cultures and different heritages. Go to the next slide, please. These are some other examples. We're really focusing on inquiry and design thinking, which goes along with the digital citizenship work. So you see some kids working on different components there. We're building confident and independent learners through group work. You go to the next slide, please. And we're building research skills. Many of our librarians are partnering with family and communities partnerships. We're also doing a lot of work in our libraries to support core curriculum. So kids will come to the library in order to learn about the setup, what databases are available, how they can support research in their core content. And that is it. Thank you.
Nice job.
It was very comprehensive.
I
Thank you,
tried
Jen.
to speak fast, sorry.
It's a lot of information.
It's a
Yeah.
very broad area,
Yeah.
and it's
Very
important for us all
important.
to remember, it's not just reading, it's reading, speaking, listening, and writing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot involved. Thank you.
Any questions or comments?
I had some questions, but I'm not gonna ask, it's too late into this. I'll talk about it, because I had a few questions I wanted to ask in regards to ELA. So I asked a few questions. First of all, I would love to understand part of those assessments, part of those tests, there's a writing component. And I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you, a lot of the children that I work with in the district, and I'm not being mean,
Mhm.
but their writing skills, it's not where it needs to be. I'll leave it at that.
They write the way they talk a lot of times.
Thank you. Like, can anybody here tell me what ION means?
With who?
ION.
ION? Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what that means. That's what they write.
Oh,
They-
I thought
they-
IDK, I thought IDK.
That's what
I
it
don't
was when
know.
we were growing up.
Yeah.
It's ION now, but I say it to say this. When they do the writing portion on these tests, they're not using a computer. Or do they?
We're in the process.
We're in the process. So it can be administered print or digitally. It's set up to do both. So whatever
Okay.
preference wise, because K1, they need to work on
Mhm.
we need to work on handwriting. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I think it's something we need to continue also, because I'm talking about middle school and high school kids. A written paragraph is, and I know they're gonna be scored on that. There's no way they're passing. And it's not about an intellect level, intelligence level, because some of these kids are very smart, but their writing,
The way they talk.
oh my God, are we addressing that? And I'll say this. A couple of college entrance essays that had to be written, and I thank God for some of the people in the district who wrote it over for the kids, but if they would have handed in what they had, they would have been in the outbox. And it's sad because we're putting these kids out into real life without written communication skills.
That's why we're
I'm talking
focusing
about
on.
basic stuff like indenting a paragraph.
It's a top priority for us right now.
It's bad.
But I think it comes from texting, because the same way they text and stuff, that's the way they,
Right.
but that's not all students, because I've seen some students who
No.
can write well, but the students who have issues, it's because of the way they talk and communicate now, and they put that on paper. They have what they want to say, they know what they want to say, but they don't write it out well.
And I would venture to ask,
But those are skills that are learned in grade
absolutely,
1, 2, 3.
absolutely,
And those have to really be strengthened, because when they get to do
100%.
the science regions, they've got to write. When they get
Yes.
to do the math,
Yes.
they've got to write.
And I would venture to ask, I don't need to answer now, but from a demographic standpoint, I would love to see the amount of kids of color, how they score on the ELA written. I'm just curious.
We can get that for you.
Because I hate to say it. No, I'll leave it there. I'll just wait for the numbers. Because I know the kids that I work with, it shocks me sometimes. I'm like, this is not 10th grade or 9th grade or 8th grade.
It's very,
Writing
How it should
sample,
be.
yeah.
Should not be.
it's very, and I know we're running out of time, but it's very important that we integrate our writing, reading, and oral speaking and listening skills into all of our content
Yes.
areas.
Yes.
Because once we start to do that, when kids are writing for narrative, it's great. When kids are writing explanatory, it's also great. When kids are writing in content area, they're also mastering the content as well as improving their writing skills. And the more they write, the better they get.
Yes, I agree.
The better they read.
I agree. Thank you. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's what it is, because I'm still confused as how a high school student can confuse all of theirs. They're meaning right one there and I can't. So, yeah. Any other questions or comments? Thank you for your
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you,
Thank
Jen. And that concludes our agenda.
Oh, okay. If no one else has any questions or comments, I would like to adjourn this meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So,